G'day folks, Mark here again. Just a bit of update on the election, the gun rally, the gun regulations, all that sort of stuff that we obviously have been talking about on the channel. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, we have a whole new set of gun regulations, firearms regulations that are coming into Western Australia. Firearms regulations that in some fashions, yes, it's time for a rewrite, sort things out. The way this has happened is very bad. The police department have made regulations without due consultation, not for the people, for them, and very much in a biased sense to try and ultimately, quite easy to see, ultimately to try and remove firearms from the population completely, which is a little bit of the thing that all over Australia, different police forces are up to the same sorts of things. This is the by far the biggest overreach that's happening here, and it is about to come into actual functioning law after our election. So all the ins and outs of that's another whole conversation, and even all the details that go with it. It's got a lot of people upset, a lot of people concerned, whether it's having to buy new thousands of dollar safes to put a gun in them, or it's having to limiting the guns where people are only allowed so many, or tracking people in the way of going through a process of digital licenses and making sure you've got digital properties to go to it, all sorts of things. A great big tangle, not to even say the amount of administration it would take on a police force that is already not capable of doing what it's doing, and then it's trying to complete or make those laws harder to implement by 1,000%, and there's no logic to this. So it's not really a workable thing. It really should go to the broader community to nut it out, make it make sense in all the ways, and make it good and safe for the population and all the rest of it, do that as thoroughly as possible. But it has been pushed through, as our Labor government has, as our police minister and the hierarchy of the police force have wanted it to do, to try and just happen. So that's the negative to this. In a bigger, broader picture, for those people who are going, oh, it's just gun people complaining, that side of things, there is very much a case of this is the nature of what's happening with our unelected government at the moment. Yes, the police force are a big part of this, but it's happening all over the place. And there's so many different things being impacted. Been through it many times, so whether it's farming, whether it's the keep the sheep thing, which is the same sort of process, that's more on a federal level, but whether it's the fisheries and what they're dealing with, whether it's just normal fishers, whether it's the beaches that have been closed off, or hiking tracks that have been blocked down, or national parks that have been taken away and not able to be accessed anymore, to what's going on in schools, to all sorts of things. All actually comes down to the same things. Unelected government becoming the ruling class, and they will tell us, the sheeple class, as to what we can and can't do. So not the West Australia that we want to live in, and I suppose a lot more people involved than we think. So that's that side of it. The other nutshell side of it is what's going on in the election. There's a lot to happen with the election. When that happens, there's a lot of different outcomes that can come from it. Now, a little bit what that simply means is if the right parties get in, or the right independents get in, then there is all likelihood that these gun laws that are just going to happen 3 or 5 days after the election, and then all of a sudden there's a whole new set of legislation that no one actually fully understands. It hasn't been interpreted, it hasn't been explained, and in a lot of cases what we do understand doesn't make enough sense to make it work properly. If Labor get in, that's the plan, just to push it through. But if like I said, other parties or other independents get in, and then the real push at the moment is to simply get that to stop it in its tracks right there and get it to go back across the Parliament. So then there'll be a proper conversation about it, then it can turn into whatever it is. So whether some of it's used, or all of it's used, or none of it's used, or all that sort of stuff, it goes through the mangle, goes through and try to make it work, make it make sense. So many things don't make sense here. It's much more, very much driven about trying to create votes, trying to remove firearms to create votes, and there's probably bigger agendas attached to it as well. But there's a good chance of it going back in that place. And on that note, there are, from the Nationals, I think there's even now a declaration from the Liberals that if they get in, then it'll be pushed back across the floor. I don't particularly trust any of them through the process of we don't actually know what happens, and we're more than a month out from the actual election. So there's no doubt a lot of saber rattling to happen till we get to that point, but there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. But it's not to, I suppose, what I want to say to that. The reason these noises are happening is because the public, well, in my opinion, I suppose, and I'll go into my opinion, is that it is such a massive overreach by the police department. It is so poorly done the way they've done it. They sent out texts and emails and things to intimidate people into, you've got to change over. You've got to, I get emails every day of people who send me what they've been sent, and there's along the lines of, you're going to have to change your licenses over to a different thing, or you need to get rid of these firearms, or you need to do, if you don't do this sort of stuff, then we may revoke your whole license, so you won't be able to have any firearms because you didn't sort out this stuff here, on laws that aren't actually in place yet. They are ready to be in place without question, but they're not in place yet. So that sort of stuff is an overreach that gets to a point where you are intimidating the public, and I think because of that, well, I'm certain because of that, that is starting to where the other parties and the other, be it the independents or be it Labor or be it Democrats, realise this is a voting issue, and so it is starting to turn the tide a little bit in our favour. I don't want to say it's all over, we're all good, it's all easy, don't worry about it, no, whatsoever, because there's a lot to go yet. And at this moment, it's still playing games with, in the way of getting votes. That's what they're all about. The old rule, don't trust a politician. It's not made up and it's not changed. We haven't evolved into now we've got honest politicians, and yeah, I suppose, yes, there are. But ultimately, no, you don't trust them on what they say they're going to do. You can trust them once you've found they've done it. So it means keep up that vigilance about that side of things, and keep trying to spread the word. I would say that also moves into a couple of things on the election side of it. I've mentioned before, and I will do another video in a couple of weeks' time to go through and put it on. And I'll put a link down below here to a gentleman who goes through and explains our preferential vote system, but it's not what we thought it was or what it was. It's not a case of our vote goes to one place and then it ends up going to one of the major parties. Preferentials probably was a little bit like that previously, but now it's not. Now your preferences are the only things that count. So when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, that means, and you'll have to understand how that works, where it doesn't, how that preference travels, but it goes to your preference. So if you preference the things at the top of your list, those are the ones that are where your vote's going to go. So you can make your vote count for what you want it to. I won't get into any more of that at the moment, but that's very relevant on that side of things. We do have power as long as we understand it. Watch that video down below, find out about preferences yourself, but it is about the individual votes preferences is where they go. So you do have a fair bit of control in that situation. So that's that. The other bit, which I suppose I'll touch on, is the gun rally, which is coming up. There's been a little bit of misinformation out there, or confusion out there, I suppose. The gun rally is driven by the West Australian, the Shooters Union gentleman, who is actually driving that. I have spoken to him, or he contacted me, reached out to me. I've spoken to a fair few people on this sort of stuff. He has the same reservations as I express, as the fact that, you know, if things went wrong at the rally, then that could be used against shooters. And yeah, that's sort of the nature of what's been happening in certainly Western Australia. We've had that sort of thing before. I think very much that message is in most shooters' heads. You know, come dress well, dress, you know, very smart casual, bring along the missus, bring along the family, bring along kids, that sort of stuff. Show a demographic that's a far broader demographic. I would go so far as to say is bring along a fishing mate, bring along a fishing mate's family, that sort of stuff, or a farmer, or a keep the sheeper, or you know, whatever it is, a worried parent who we're worried about what's happening in our schools, that sort of stuff. Bring along a bigger demographic than just firearms for people who are going to that sort of thing. The main thing, when I spoke to Steve at the Shooters Union, his real drive to this was to connect to the disenfranchised. There's a lot of shooters out there that feel they're not part of clubs. The majority of shooters aren't part of clubs. Most of our organisations are about clubs, are about that side of things. So they are to do with, and I won't mention all the different club names and that sort of stuff, but they're about clubs. The actual truth of it, the majority of our firearms owners aren't about clubs, so they don't really feel connected to things properly. Of course, the police and the laws and that are pushing people to join clubs. That would suit them very much. And I suppose to some degree or another, you've got to say it also suits the clubs. As to anything comment beyond that point is not what I'm trying to make whatsoever. My comment would be that was Steve, when I spoke to him, that was his main drive and the main reason he connected with people, and that's Shooters Union WA, but he connected with Shooters Union, he spoke to and was encouraged to with Shooters Union Australia, so the National Shooters Union, and then there's some other people involved in trying to get that word out there. So, but his main thing was to be there for the people that feel disenfranchised. Those same people that I sort of was trying to help with getting emails, getting texts, that sort of stuff, intimidating people, making people really feel like criminals because these police are sort of treating them that way about laws that aren't actually in place first. So really wanted to be there and encourage that sort of feeling to it. To encourage the feeling of that you're not alone, we're there for you. The shooting community is part of this. So it was a really good, positive sort of conversation I had with him. And I suppose in the bigger stuff, there are other factions, and this is sort of the nature of this sort of problem. There are a little bit of the divide and conquer, and we tend to do it amongst ourselves. We are a whole heap of, as much as we're all firearms owners, we are all individuals, and whether that's from the dealer's perspective, which is a very different perspective from the hunter's perspective, it's a very different perspective from the collector's perspective, it's a very different perspective, and I can go through all the different perspectives, but we all have different perspectives, so try and sit and back from that, and just even when you look at the shooter, then there is lots of different ways of looking at this. We all have a common foe in the situation, which is because we're being treated as the enemy by the police hierarchy. We all end up in that position. So I would say use this as, take all the information here with a grain of salt, and try and think that we are better as a group. And if I could get a sugar bag and put all the egos into it and shake it hard enough to make them all sort of, listen, we're all on the same path here. At the end of the day, I think there's even some entities that would like credit for what's actually happening at the moment. My honest belief on that path is the massive police overreach that was a mistake. That caused, although trying to cause a reaction, it caused a backlash, and I feel that might be the real core of this sort of stuff. You start sending personal stuff to people on laws that aren't in place. I would think you've broken some federal laws, but let's say I don't know what they've broken laws-wise. They certainly have torn the band-aid off, and it's not going real nicely at this moment. So I think that's the bigger issue. My comment is let's be a team, that side of things, and I would then reiterate even further than that. There is comments about looking at this as a single issue and becoming a single issue voter. I understand the logic to that, which means that all that matters is your firearms, so vote for the people who are most likely to protect your firearms. And I get that from a firearms institution or from a firearms guy solely. I don't particularly think it's the smartest move. I would tend to go with to combine those preferences and the way of voting into people that, yes, they're doing this as well, but there are other things. There's other things that matter. Cost of living matters. Freedoms matter. Not tracking us matters. Not having 15-second or 15-minute cities, or all the different things that are in place in all sorts of fashions where, be it in general, our government is trying to overreach, and that comes right down to councils, that goes to whether it's the state government or the federal government, or as all the unelected side of things that are starting to make more and more decisions for us. I would come down to small government, which means a lot less overreach from things. I'd come down to as much freedom as we can, and I'd come down to as much common sense as we can have. So I suppose I'm more conservative values is what I would say. But my comment would be inside that bracket, firearms are always protected. So you've got to do your research on that sort of stuff. But hey, listen, that's still, either way is going to get us to the right place at this stage. Do understand preferences matter. Do try and be that team. So, and keep in mind that comment of government overreach. It goes far past our little 90,000 group of firearms owners in Western Australia. It goes into the four-wheel drivers of Western Australia. It goes into all levels of fishing in Western Australia, all levels of farming in Western Australia. All schools are involved with what's going on with curriculum and that side of things, with whether it's hikers, whether it's bush campers, or it's bushwalkers, or it's, and you name it. I can't begin to mention the number of things that are under attack at the moment from government, small government, large government, all the rest of it. And I can't even begin to imagine where it's going to end up if it isn't stopped, if it isn't halted. So when we view things through that perspective, we're not 90,000, we're probably more than 50% of this state. We probably can do a lot more if we actually all get together and look at it that way. So at least on the conversation side of things, I don't agree with being single issue. I think that guns are, the gun laws and the way that police have behaved is a very good example of how our unelected government behaves, but it is not the most important one to most people. So if we can attach to what is the most important one to them and then attach our very good example to that as well, then we are more likely to garner their agreement, or their become on the same team. And who knows, we may even find there is another angle we can find as to what suits us as well. But the larger team we are, the bigger voice we are, that's what democracy is supposed to be. I don't know what democracy actually is, truthfully, but if we can be that, the people are in charge and the government is for the people, not on top of the people, then we get to the right place. So anyway, that's enough. I'm starting to babble in politics, which isn't really my field whatsoever. I suppose for the people who are going to the shooters rally or the gun rally, listen, best behaviour, nice clothes, bring along some other people, think about the demographic, watch out for your mate, all that sort of stuff, absolutely. For people who are getting a little bit tossed around, torn between with some of the stuff that's coming out in social media with one group, another group, that sort of stuff, a little bit of the negativity. Listen, there's lots involved. I suppose forgive them for their errors. They are trying for the best. There's egos involved, this sort of stuff. It is high pressure situation. There is other perceptions to this same sort of thing. Let's get through this and let's use this energy in the months and years to come after the election to see if we can straighten up this ship and get it nice and get it to a place where we can make this even better than, well, a lot better than what we had, but certainly a lot better than what they have planned for us. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for checking in. I hope you liked the video. Leave all your comments and decisions and things below. And otherwise, thanks very much for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.